Up next, we have another brilliant keynote presentation by Mr. Brett Samuel, Head of Technology, Middle East and Africa at Veritas Technology. A brief introduction of Brett. Brett is responsible for ensuring customer success with Veritas Technology and assisting them with digital transformation and cloud adoption through his team of passionate technology professionals. Brett previously worked in the role of customer CTO for strategic accounts in telco and finance sectors. Welcome, Brett, and the stage is all yours.
Just let me try to work out this technology called Zoom. I think I'm there. Right, hopefully you can see me and hear me and everything's working.
Yes, I can see you. We can see your presentation.
That's great. Thank you very much. So thank you, everybody. It's great to be here with you this afternoon. I think I'm coming into your schedule quite late into a reasonably long day, but I had the opportunity of listening to some of the discussions that happened. And I think, I really want to talk less about, us as a vendor and just some of the discussions that we've been having over the last couple of years and months, because I think there's been some interesting things, interesting discussions going on. And I think we might have a point of view on some of the points that were spoken about in terms of multi-cloud and how do you deal with different vendors and different clouds and a lot of that stuff. I think as business leaders and as IT professionals, one of our core requirements or demands on us is to be an agent of change, and that's never easy, is it? And, if I can think about the last year and a half, the one thing I can say that definitely it has accelerated dramatically. So, as we've gone through that, at Veritas, we've always had this, we've always worked, one of our principles has always been heterogeneous, multi-tenant, not being aligned with any vendors, but working across everything. And I think that came to bear for me, when we started having these discussions. Suddenly we realized that, when I thought about IT, I come from a time when we used to have servers and we used to have storage arrays and we had vendor reliability. Nowadays, that's really disappearing quite quickly. But I think one of the traps is to, not fall back into those paradigms. When we talk about, infrastructure as code and how we're going to use that to get everything into all these services online. And then all of a sudden we start to think of lifting and shifting virtual machines, and we go back into that kind of infrastructure way of thinking. So, the one challenge I was put to you is, as you go forward, I've come to the realization there's only one thing that matters, and that is your data itself, the data that empowers our applications and interactions. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we deal with that in this day and age. So I heard a lot of the words challenge in the lead up to this. We had challenges around security. We had challenges about visibility and monitoring, or how are we going to migrate information. But I'd say that, one of the things that I see more than anything is a huge opportunity if we take the right approach. So, there's an example that's a pretty typical example of a customer that we're speaking to, where they had to do a massive transformation very quickly. In actual fact, on the 30th of March, the last time I was in Qatar. I was attending some customer meetings. I got a phone call saying, okay, guys, you need to go home and you're going to be working from home for the next year. And we managed to stand up, and we're very lucky, that the internet and the networks were capable of doing that. And obviously there was a heroic effort that went on with the network team standing up VPN capacity. We did really adopted a lot of cloud services. It turned out that our biggest issue with doing that change, which we did, 8,000 people in about 5 days, so I don't think it's a terrible track record, was in actual fact the risk and governance discussions we had to have. But how do we make sure that we can, change the way our platforms work while maintaining, control of our data for risk and compliance purposes, and to ensure we don't get fined because of GDPR. And that's a common story I'm hearing. So, the one thing I take away, this digital transformation discussion that you're having today It's absolutely, I know that you've probably been living it very, and experiencing some of that pain and challenge, but I think it's stepping our businesses forward. And, a lot of businesses, you go and look at the tech giants, they've been more profitable over the last years than ever before. And that speaks a lot to the change that we're trying to drive. However, there are some things that we need to work on. And I think, we all have marketing departments that tell a bit of a story. And, we're told about how we can, implement cloud, and we're going to save all this money because we're not going to buy any hardware again. How it's going to be faster. It's going to be infinitely performant. We don't have to worry about architectures and sizing. And of course, that we're going to be more resilient than ever before. Well, maybe that isn't true. Okay. Most companies overspend when they start adopting cloud, because they haven't gone cloud native. They're taking old-fashioned IT thinking and putting those applications into the cloud without understanding the relevance of those applications in their data. We know that IT security has been a major theme today. And if there's anything that I've seen, is we're in the data management space, that, with ransomware doubling over the last year, we've just seen massive impacts of those ransomware attacks on our customers who've experienced, an average downtime of 8 days on the back of an attack. That's an average. There've been some horrific attacks over the last year. So, making sure we've got the right plan and strategy around how we're going to do this is very important to ensuring that we can protect and get value that we expect from our new cloud investments, whether they're on-prem or in the public cloud. So you've seen this story a little bit, edge core cloud. So I think about it slightly differently. When we talk about edge core and cloud, we're thinking about it more from where the information resides. And the truth is, we're not all adopting completely cloud native, Kubernetes based, solutions natively today. Some are trying, but even the banks who are the most innovative that I've spoken to, they've still often got a core banking service that's going to sit in their data center. So this all needs to be connected. And the concept that I like to talk about here, obviously the connectivity is very important and the performance, but we need to make sure that we understand where the data is in this picture at every step of the way. So we've spent the last couple of years building out our data services platform to take these aspects into account. So I would say I kind of put analytics at the beginning, the middle, and the end. It exists all the time. We need to make the right decisions when we go and plan our transformations to ensure that we're bringing the critical data into the cloud and we're not wasting money on things that we don't need to move across. While we do that, we need to have protection in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. So as we've go through that, we need to make sure that wherever the platform exists, whatever business decisions are made, it's not held back by how we're protecting the information. And of course, you can do this, portions of this, using particular vendors' tools. The trick has always been, as you want to make changes, move from VMware to OpenShift, okay? How does that tool chain affect you? If you're locked into a single strategy, it's going to be very difficult to make those transformations. So, when we look at this, I think definitely as we go and do that transformation, what we've seen is, for sure, moving the data across, understanding that data has gravity and is performant is very important. But I think what's more important is how do you do that, ensuring that you can provide the performance and resiliency if you're going multi-cloud. Any single cloud vendor probably has good products and solutions in the space, but even the biggest guys will lock those solutions down to particular availability zones, for example. That makes it very difficult to do that transformation in a multi-cloud world. When it comes to protecting your information, again, you need to have the best capabilities of ensuring that your infrastructure is available and it has the performance capabilities around the data protection. And even more importantly, when you come to recovery, based on the importance of the data. And of course,
So Brett, sorry about that. You've gone on mute, Brett.
Apologies, guys. I think something kicked off on my laptop. Everything good?
Yeah, all good now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. So I think it's very important that as we do that, you've got support for whatever that infrastructure looks like. So in the old days when I used to work on Sun Solaris servers and EMC disk arrays, your world's probably not going to look like that going forward. Most of it's going to be software defined. A lot of it's going to be new, changing very, very rapidly. So having that support for those multiple targets is very important. Let me try to click. So when we talk about multi-tenancy and particularly about cloud, it's kind of interesting to have been here for the last 6 years. When I got here, a cloud was based on VMware. That's what you implemented. That's what you did. And there was a lot of Windows in that mix. And there was very little flexibility. If I have a look now, we've got pretty much all of the major cloud providers, depending on the country of residence you're in. And you might want to make very different choices for the kind of cloud you want to operate. Maybe you do have a critical business application that you think you can get delivered as a service out of Oracle's cloud and reduce the number of changes you make while completely revolutionizing your end user experience by using some of the latest, AI technologies from Microsoft Azure. So integrating those solutions is important, not just from avoiding vendor lock-in capability, managing cost from the vendor's perspective, but I think from the capabilities that you want to be able to utilize. Sorry, this is driving me crazy. Okay, so, so we have a look at that. We've put together some integration that we call an enterprise data services platform that we think addresses a lot of these requirements. And fundamentally, what we're seeing is for customers who are using this as part of their cloud migrations, we're significantly reducing the costs of making those changes. I'll speak about a use case at the beginning of this with Abu Dhabi Health, and just talk about some of the savings that they were able to use in their private cloud migration. We also think it's very important that we're optimizing our staff. One of the key points that's come out is, with this new technology, we don't necessarily have access to all of the right people to go and implement this. Whether it's, whether that's we're changing platforms significantly, or whether it's, our teams are being stretched to do, much more higher value tasks, we need to be much more automated in the way we implement this stuff. So, as we talk about that, I'll talk a little bit about how we think about this. So when we think about enterprise data services and how we look at this, obviously, what you need to do is we need to identify what are your most mission critical apps and make sure you migrate them with the correct amount of high availability that you need. That often means, and that the difference that I see from a lot of the cloud vendors is they tend to think, and we tend to still think about high availability as a server-based thing. If the server is up and running, our application is working. That's absolutely not the truth. We don't care if the database is working, if you can't log onto your bank's website, right? You still can't access the business service. So, the fact that a lot of the high availability solutions that are out there at the moment are based generally on the actual servers and only integrate kind of at that layer doesn't really solve that problem. So we believe if you want to go and make your applications highly available in the cloud or in your data center, you need to build business services that create those links between those different tiers. Clearly, we spoke about that you need to protect your data. One of the big things that we've seen is in the case of, and I'll again use ransomware because it's a common case, that changed the paradigm of how we had to recover data. In the old days, you typically recovered a server or a database or a file, and you could build your recovery plan around that. Now, if you have to recover an entire environment, you might not have the bandwidth to stand up all that stuff and get all that information back. So a key thing that we're using is analytics to understand and give you insight into those when you are attacked, understand which data is affected so you can make sure you've got a strategy of getting the most critical information up with intelligence about what you need to recover. The cloud is a great place to use to reduce cost of storage, and particularly long-term storage. So one of the things that we're seeing, and this is being particularly with things like the local data laws that will be spun up in most of the countries, we're seeing that the need to retain information for long terms, the life of the customer, okay, is becoming more and more important. The cloud is a brilliant space to extend your capabilities to do that, long-term retention, and even do disaster recovery from the cloud. So maybe having, your primary infrastructure in your private cloud, where you've got, where you've got everything in place and you've got the team around it. But when we need to do a disaster recovery, having that replicated into lower cost storage in the cloud that you can spin up when you need it. That ultimately is going to drive cost optimization across your cloud strategy. And, and that's a key to what we're trying to do here. I think another thing that came up, and we did a survey last year or so, where we spoke to CIOs and asked them that a lot of them were adopting SaaS services, Office 365 and Microsoft 365 and things like that. And we asked them questions about the contracts they signed and how that data was protected. Well, 30+% of CIOs that we interviewed didn't really understand the risks and the limitations around the data that they put into SaaS. So that's another space where we think we can add quite a lot of value in taking a cloud native approach to protecting SaaS data. So it's being protected at low enough cost to make it viable, but also you can recover the data if you, after a particular length of retention, or you've had a ransom attack or something like that. So look, I wanted to give you just an insight about why we thought that a cloud services approach, an enterprise data management approach was very important to cloud services. And the reality is, I'm not going to go through these in too much case, but you can see the different ways that we've definitely been able to measure impacts with customers. And these are all case studies, public case studies that we've put onto our website, because we've done the exercise with the customers, they've realized the value, and they've been prepared to do public statements that are showing how they've either avoided costs, like the Abu Dhabi Health Services did, when we basically reduced their cost of a new implementation by 70% by taking this kind of approach, whether they've been able to utilize new cloud services to either give them better availability or better flexibility as they're going into the cloud. So I think there's a great opportunity to look at your cloud strategy, look for the opportunities that you see there, and taking the right data-centric approach can allow you to implement those strategies without introducing a lot of risk. So guys, thank you very much. I appreciate the chat today, and sorry for a couple of technical issues on my side. Just if you do need follow-up people, I would just introduce you to Wasim, who's on the phone with me. He's your local country manager in QATAR. And of course, myself, I look after the Middle East. I'm based in Dubai. And if you have any questions, you want to do follow-up with myself or the team, we're more than happy to get engaged. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Brett, for the informative keynote speech. We truly value your presence and association with us here today, and enjoy the rest of the day, Brett.
Cool. Thank you.
Dear participants, Veritas Technology is our data protection partner, and I request all of you to definitely consider visiting their booth and explore their world-class solutions.